everyone. I'm Ms. Wokovia, your economics teacher. I'm here to illustrate the graphical illustration of a normal demand curve and abnormal demand curve. As we all know, the law of demand, which states that the higher the price, the lower the quantity demanded, and the lower the price, the higher the quantity demanded. I'm going to illustrate that for you. For example, but before you prepare a demand curve, there is need for you to prepare a table. It's a table that will give you the price, the specific price, and the quantity, the price of the commodity, the price of the you have the price of the commodity. Let's give it a name. Maybe the price of beans. The price of beans. Then here you have the quantity that was the quantity demanded. The quantity demanded. Then let's say at the various prices, we have 3 naira. I have the naira sign here. The 2 naira, 1 naira, 50 kobo. What was the quantity demanded in bags? Let's put the quantity demanded in bags. Here, these are the quantity demanded in bags, so that we can be sure. Then here, at 3 naira, 10 bags demanded, 2 naira, 20 bags demanded, 1 naira, 30 bags, and at 50 kobo, 40 bags demanded. So this is a table, and in economics it is called the demand schedule. It is called demand schedule. So this is the demand schedule showing the price and quantity of bag of beans demanded. So after this, we now illustrate it in a curve. We prepare the demand curve. So this is the demand curve. In the demand curve, you have the y-axis and the x-axis. This y-axis is for the price. This is the price. This normally says the price, and this is for the quantity demanded, and the various prices. So here we have make reference, the curve is being prepared from the table. We make reference to the demand schedule, which is here. We have 3 naira, we have 2 naira, 1 naira, and we also have 50 kobo. And the quantity demanded, you put your scale, 10, 20, 30, and 40. So you now plot it. At 3 naira, or we can start from the lowest, 50 kobo. At 50 kobo, the quantity demanded is 40. At 1 naira, quantity demanded 30. At 2 naira, quantity demanded 20. And at 3 naira, quantity demanded 10. So after getting the points, you join it together to form the curve. And when you are doing the curve, don't use a ruler, because it is a curve and not a straight line. You use a free hand, or you use a broomstick to get your curve. So this is the demand curve, and this is the normal demand curve. It is a it has a negative slope. It has a negative slope or negative sloping. It has a negative slope. So this is the normal demand curve. It says the higher the price, the law of demand says that the higher the price, the lower the quantity demanded, and the lower the price, the higher the quantity demanded. So this is the sample of a normal demand curve, and it is negative sloping. It has a negative slope. Then now I'm going to explain the abnormal demand curve. This is the normal one. We've explained it. This is the normal demand curve. Then we'll now come to the abnormal demand curve. And in the abnormal demand curve, it is not it's not like the normal demand curve. And what could bring about this abnormal demand curve could be articles of ostentations, fear of rise in price. You'll find out that people, due to fear of rise in price, tends to buy more of a particular goods at a particular point in time if they fear that the price of that particular goods is going to go higher. So there are three cases that brings about abnormal demand curve. So causes of abnormal demand curve. Causes of abnormal demand curve are: one, we have the positive sloping demand curve. Are one, when the demand curve has a positive slope, then two, when a demand curve has more than one slope, Then the third is the extreme cases of elasticity of demand. The extreme cases of elasticity of demand. So these are the three areas where we have abnormal demand curve. So we're going to explain them one after the other. So we're going to start with the first one, that is when the demand curve is positive sloping or has a positive slope. And this case, what brings about this is: one, purchase of articles of ostentation, and two, fear of increase in prices of goods and services. So let's explain them, both of them. You'll find out that when, in the case of article of ostentation, you find out that most consumers prefer to have products that they can use to show off. That is, goods that has a snob appeal, to show that we have arrived, to show that they have money. They will prefer to buy that goods even when it is very expensive, just to show the class that they belong. That is articles of ostentation. Then fear of increase in price. Fear of increase in prices of goods and services in the nearest future. Could also lead to an abnormal demand, because at that price the consumer buys more of the goods even at a higher price. So this is how the positive sloping demand curve is. It's like this. So this is the price, and this is the quantity demanded. Looking at this, compared to the demand curve we plotted earlier, is quite different. The first one we plotted was negative sloping. It moves from left to right, but this one is moving from is moving upward positively. And here you can see that at lower price, let's assume, let's say 50 kobo, you can see the quantity demanded very low. But at higher price of 3 naira, higher price of let's say 3 naira, quantity demanded is high. So this is an example of an abnormal demand, because it does not follow the law of demand. The law of demand states that the higher the price, the lower the quantity demanded, and the lower the price, the higher the quantity demanded. But under these articles of ostentation or fear of increase in the price of goods and services in the nearest future, you find that most consumer tends to buy goods even at a higher price. Even at a higher price, they buy the goods. And this does not follow the law of demand. It is against the law of demand. So this is one aspect that brings about abnormality in demand curve. Then we have the second one, that is when the demand curve has more than one slope. When the demand curve has more than one slope, it means it has more than one slope. Let me clean this, please. Okay. When the demand curve has more than one slope, has more than one slope. And what could give rise to this could be gifting goods. We have what we call gifting goods or inferior goods. Then two, what could give rise to this could also be rare commodities. Commodities that are not common. Rare commodities. In the case of the gifting goods or inferior goods, when the income of a consumer increases, he tends to buy less of the goods. He tends to buy less of the goods because the income of the consumer has increased. For example, let's say when the income of the consumer was little, right, the income was very little, he was buying goods like momo, gari. You find out that when his income now increases, the consumption of such goods will reduce. Even at low prices, it's going to reduce, and it's going to buy more quality goods that are of a higher price. They're rare commodities. People tend to spend more money on goods that are not common. You know, they spend more money on goods that are not common, that are rare, that are not everywhere. You know, even at a higher price, they spend more on such products. So this is the example of a demand curve with more than one slope. You can see it here. This is how it comes. In this case, the demand curve, this is the price side, this is the quantity demanded. You can see that in this place, the demand curve is of two slopes. Here, the demand curve is normal at higher price. Normal demand curve. This is a normal demand curve at higher price. At higher price. Why in this place is abnormal demand curve at lower price. Because the normal thing is at a lower price, the demand ought to be higher. But you can see it's here. Look at the curve. Let's say at 50 kobo. Look at the quantity. Or at 1 naira. Look at the quantity demanded. Very little. Let's say just 10 here. Compared to the law of demand. Then at which is very little. So it's abnormal in this case. It's very abnormal. But here it is a normal thing because at higher price, the quantity demanded is normally low. But in this case, at lower price, demand is abnormal because the quantity demanded is low. It's low. It does not follow the law of demand that says at lower price, the quantity demanded will be high. So this is an abnormal case. Then we also have another graph to illustrate the demand curve with more than one slope. We have another case that illustrates that. We also have this. So this for the price, and this for the quantity demanded. This for the quantity demanded. So you can see it's like letter C here. This is another demand curve with more than one slope. Letter C. At this case, this is a normal demand curve. Normal demand curve. This is a normal demand curve at lower price. At lower price. Why at this place it is abnormal? It is abnormal demand curve. It is abnormal demand. This is an abnormal demand. DD here represents demand. Abnormal demand at higher price. Abnormal demand at higher price. What does this explain? Under the rare commodities, you know, commodities that are not rare tends to be more expensive, and consumers that can afford it will buy it. No matter the number, they will buy the goods. Even at a higher price, they will buy it. So in this case, we have the abnormal case. This is abnormal demand at higher price. But in this, at the lower price, we have the normal demand at lower price. So this is for rare commodities. Why this is for gifting goods? This one is for gifting goods. This is for gifting goods. You have it. This is for gifting goods here. That is the inferior goods. Why this is for rare commodities? Consumers tend to spend more on goods that are not common. On goods that are not common to show off their wealth and whatever they believe in. Then there's another third case of abnormal demand curve. That is the extreme cases of elasticity. Extreme cases of elasticity of demand. And under the extreme cases of elasticity of demand, we have the zero elasticity of demand. Elasticity of demand. We have the zero elasticity of demand, and the infinitely elasticity of demand. Zero elasticity of demand and infinitely elasticity of demand. So let me illustrate with the curve, the respective curve. The respective curve. Under the zero elasticity of demand, the zero elasticity of demand curve is this form. This is the demand curve. You can see here you have the price, and here you have the quantity demanded. So at various prices, the quantity demanded remains the same. Even P1, that's price 1, the quantity demanded is the same. P2, quantity demanded is the same. P3, quantity demanded is the same. There is no elasticity at all. There's no change in quantity demanded as a result of change in price. The demand at various prices, quantity demanded remains the same. It remains the same. Then we also have the goods that fall under these categories are goods that you cannot do without. Goods you cannot do without. For example, like water. The price of water, bottled water, pure water has gone up. And even with the increase in the price of water, purified water, bottled water, the demand is still the same, because you can't do without it. You must take it. So at the various prices, the quantity demanded is still the same. Therefore, goods that you cannot do without. Then, under the infinitely elasticity of demand, at a particular price, the demand varies. Can start from 0 to infinitely. It has no limit at that particular price. But once the price goes up, there will be no demand. The consumers might decide not to buy such goods. And this can happen to goods that have very close substitutes. If the price is too high, the consumer can decide to go for a close substitute. So these are the various cases of abnormality in demand. You can see that it does not follow the normal demand curve that slopes negatively. So thank you. I hope you've been able to differentiate between a normal demand curve and the abnormal demand curve, and to know the causes of abnormal demand curve. And we've been able to explain it, that the various causes of abnormal demand curve could be when a demand curve has a positive slope, and this positive slope could come about when the consumer fears there will be increase in price of goods and services and tends to buy more of the goods at that particular time. And articles of ostentation, when the consumer buys goods that have snob appeal to show off their wealth. And we also said the second cases could be when a demand curve has more than one slope. And we said this could be in the area of gifting goods and rare commodities, when more of a commodity is bought at a higher price and less of the commodity is bought at a lower price. Then we went to the third case of abnormality of demand, abnormal demand curve, and we said that is the extreme cases of elasticity of demand. We made mention of the zero elasticity of demand, that no matter the price, the quantity of demand is still the same. And also that at a particular price, various quantity can be demanded. And when there's increase in that price, that is under the infinitely elasticity of demand, at a particular price, various quantity is being demanded. But if there's a slight increase in the price, the consumers can decide to leave that goods and go for another. Thank you for listening and watching. Have a wonderful day. And please do subscribe.